The cameras were flashing. The microphones were in my face. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. I had just been appointed White House Communications Director, a dream job for any political strategist. But as I stood in front of that podium for the first time, my heart wasn't pounding with excitement. It was trembling with something else, a strange, heavy awareness that I had just stepped into the most unpredictable storm of my life. I remember the exact moment it hit me. Working for Donald Trump wasn't just a job. It was a test of loyalty, of character, and of how far you were willing to bend before you broke. The early days were electric. The White House hummed with power and chaos, like an engine that ran too hot. People rushed through hallways, clutching folders and secrets. The president's mood could shift with a tweet. One minute you were in his favor, the next, you were gone. Everyone knew it. Nobody said it, but you could see it in their eyes. That quiet fear that the next meeting, the next sentence, the next headline could end your career. For me, it started with admiration. I believed Trump was an outsider shaking up a stagnant system, a businessman who could challenge the establishment. I respected his boldness, his defiance, his refusal to play by Washington's rules. When he offered me the job, I said yes before my head could catch up with my heart. The first week was a blur. I worked 20-hour days, surviving on coffee and adrenaline. Trump would call at midnight, shouting ideas, insults, or praise, sometimes all three in the same conversation. He was magnetic and maddening, brilliant and brutal. He could make you feel like the most important person in the room, then turn around and humiliate you in front of everyone. And still, people stayed. Why? Because in some twisted way, his chaos gave them purpose. But chaos, I learned, always has a cost. Inside the White House, alliances shifted like sand. People whispered in corners, traded favors, and leaked stories to the press faster than we could control them. I saw friendships fall apart. I saw grown men cry in private offices. Everyone was fighting to survive in an environment where loyalty meant everything, and yet, loyalty was never enough. One night, I got a call from a friend in the administration. "Mooch," he said, his voice shaking, "they're coming for you." I didn't ask who they were. In Trump's world, they could mean anyone, a rival aide, a political enemy, even Trump himself. I hung up, looked at my reflection, and realized I was no longer the man who had accepted that job out of passion and pride. I was tired, defensive, and paranoid, just like everyone else around me. A few days later, I made a mistake. A single comment. Something said off the cuff, something twisted by the media, and it all came crashing down. In a matter of hours, I went from the president's trusted communicator to his latest casualty. My name was everywhere. My phone was silent. My dream was over before it even began. The worst part wasn't the fall, it was the silence after. The people who had smiled at me in the West Wing avoided me now. The ones who had promised friendship disappeared. And Trump, he didn't say a word. Not a thank you, not a goodbye, just nothing. For days, I sat alone, replaying everything in my head. The meetings, the late-night calls, the adrenaline rush of being in the center of power. And beneath it all, the growing realization that I had lost myself trying to please someone who couldn't be pleased. But here's the thing about hitting bottom, it gives you a clarity that success never does. I began to see Trump's world for what it really was, a mirror. A reflection of ambition, fear, and ego, not just his, but mine too. I had walked into that job believing I could control the chaos, that I could shape the message, that I could be the exception. Instead, the chaos consumed me. It took me months to rebuild. I reconnected with my family, people I had neglected in the whirlwind of politics. I started talking about what really happened, not out of bitterness, but out of a need to tell the truth. Because the truth matters, even when it's uncomfortable. Working for Donald Trump taught me more about power than any political textbook ever could. It taught me that leadership without empathy is tyranny, that success without integrity is hollow, and that no title, no matter how prestigious, is worth losing your soul over. There were good people in that White House, people who genuinely wanted to make a difference. But they were trapped in a system that thrived on division, where winning meant crushing, not leading. I used to think politics was about policy. Now I know it's about people, and how easily those people can be changed by the lure of power. Looking back, I don't regret working for Trump. Regret implies shame, and I've made peace with what happened. But I do carry the lesson with me every day, that truth, respect, and decency must come before loyalty to any one man. So when people ask me, what was it really like to work for Donald Trump? I tell them this: it was like standing in the eye of a hurricane. The energy was intoxicating, the power was real, but if you stood there too long, it would tear you apart. And in the end, the only way to survive was to walk away. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to step out of the storm and start rebuilding under clear skies.